Hi there, and welcome. Welcome to this opportunity and space for us to maybe hit the pause button just a little bit and do some integration and synthesis of various things. So, my name is Mary Jo Burkhard, and I have a space on Substack and several other platforms called The Alchemy. And to me, the alchemy just is a space and a place to have a variety of things, to have a melting pot where things can come together, and then a transformative space where things can emerge out of that and be somewhat different than they went in. And so, really, what I tend to describe and post a lot is around my own personal journey and transformation in all sorts of various ways. And I just invite anybody else who wants to be along for the journey to come along with me at that point. I also do a lot of channeling. And one of the things that I've noticed as we've increased the amount of channeled material that's available to people is that we sometimes don't kind of look backwards or bring parts together to integrate things that might have come up in various ways at various times. And in addition, even just a single 1 hour time period with Chardon can bring forward a lot of different ideas and materials and thoughts. And sometimes it takes more than one sort of pass of the material or even rethinking about it, reflecting on it to have some different insights come forward. There can be a lot of material that they can come through with in a pretty short period of time. So my goal with doing this is to create a space where we can kind of just integrate and synthesize some of the material. And I'm really hoping that I'll be able to do these on a regular basis and taking the point to taking the time to be able to kind of relook at and take a deeper dive into some of the channeled materials, whatever's happening in our current energies. And I think 2025 is just going to have a lot of things consistently happening with the current energies. And to be able to then to think about how do we bring those into our day-to-day life? How do we put them into our purpose, into our life path? And if you happen to be on a healing journey, how do we incorporate those into what we are working on for individual selves? So I decided that this one should maybe focus on the last Chardon connection, which was around calibrating to the current energy. And there was a section in there that really resonated for me right now. And I titled that The Frequency We Create From. And I put out the larger context as a video clip, but I just wanted to start this off by reading it and kind of putting us into this grounding of what we're looking at. So this is the part from Chardon. Chardon is, by the way, the guides that I channel. And the frequency that you inhabit is the frequency that you create from. The frequency that you inhabit is the frequency that you create from. It's the frequency that you create if you do creative art, creative music, creative cooking, creative anything. If you build, you create from that. But most importantly, it's about the life that you create. The frequency that you inhabit is very important because it either opens or limits your view of what is possible. It opens or limits your view of the paths and the branches that you may take. It opens or limits your view of what are the resources that are available to you. And I found that part around paths and branches really fascinating because a lot of times when I'm working with people one-on-one, Chardon will talk about their life path, their timeline, as almost like a hiking path or a path that would go through some area of the world, a literal, very physical path that you would be on. And I would get a sense that there would be either no branches in that path, it would be a very straight path for a period of time, or it might go up around a curve, or it might be coming to a fork in the road, or it might have a very sort of intricate, almost jumbled sense of paths. There was many different directions that you could take. And over the years that I've been working with people, I didn't have kind of this additional understanding that they framed here was that the frequency that we are inhabiting limits or opens some of those paths. So at times I would look and think maybe all of those paths are sort of equal choices or at least equal opportunities. You can choose whatever you like or choose not to take any of those choices, but that you have the same sort of visual appearance of there's so many different paths that you can take, or here's the fork in the road, and you can go 2 or 3 different directions. But perhaps in reality, in our day-to-day life, maybe those paths don't really appear as openings unless we are inhabiting a frequency that will help to open those paths. So that's just a little bit for me to think about. And perhaps if you're on a path and you're finding that you're in a period where you've got a lot of choices that are coming up for you, maybe that is because you are in a frequency that is helping to open up those. And sometimes too many choices can be just as daunting as not having any choices. So I do understand that, but a lot of times it's more that we don't see choices and we would like to have some choices. And so maybe it is about how we would consider the opportunity to shift or change what our resonance is, what our frequency is, that we might be in, then be able to see or open different paths or choices with us. The other part that they brought forward with the channel from the Chardon Connection a couple weeks ago followed right directly from that quote that I just read. And they continued on and they said, and much of your world, far too often, is calibrated to a frequency that has been defined for them by others. Kind of ouch, right? I'll read that again. And much of your world, far too often, is calibrated to a frequency that has been defined for them by others. An energy and frequency set to distract, to keep you in fear, to keep you in anxiety, to keep you feeling lack or that you are a victim. So occasionally Chardon gives me a little bit of a kind of a, hey, pay attention here. And one of the phrases they will send back to me is something that I commonly say that, oh, like I'm wrapped around the axle. And they will just sort of send me the message, you are wrapped around the axle about this, and it's not helpful for you. It's not helpful for you. Do you want to keep being wrapped around the axle of that? Because you have choices. And yeah, maybe I am being fed a steady diet of something that is focused on fear, but can I turn the channel off? Can I go to a different channel? Can I disconnect and go out for a walk, talk to the trees instead of listening to whatever is kind of dragging me down into the mud or the muck? And I think uh, there's a real dissonance at times or tension, at least in me, of here's all of these things out in the world that seem to be clamoring for my attention. And I mean, clamoring big time. And I think we're really facing this right now. But not all of them are for me to pay attention to. Not all of them are for me to do. I do need and I do desire to be sensitive and, and to understand the big pictures of what is happening in the world that I live in. And I do need and want to understand how I can have empathy for others. And I do need and want to understand what is it that is my role to do. Because I also need then to know, well, what is my role not to do? And sometimes when we hear that, we can go one of two directions. It's either, okay, good, that gives me permission to shut down everything and just kind of walk away because I need to not do a lot of things. And there are times when we literally need to disconnect. We need to shut down and take a, a period of time. And whatever that period of time is, may be different for each of us and different at different parts of our life. So for some people, you might be able to take a month sabbatical off something. And for many people, we're lucky if we could have like, 2 hours to disconnect from something. And somewhere in between is maybe where many more of us will land. But wherever it is, there are times when we truly do have to disconnect just to be able to allow us to reconnect to ourselves, to reconnect and ground. But sometimes when I feel that need to disconnect, instead of disconnecting, so instead of going for a walk or doing some Tai Chi Qigong or getting into some artwork or doing something else, I will disconnect by distractifying. I'll get on social media. I might call somebody. I will do something, hey, it's a great chance to clean my house. I will do almost anything sometimes to not sit with whatever is calling me to come back home to myself. It's usually an emotion, or it's usually an uncomfortable decision. I'm kind of struggling or wrestling with something. And those are times where I sometimes will try to dissociate and I'll try to disconnect. And I can get myself all wrapped around other people's emotions, other problems, my own problems, what I see in the world, what I would like to see in the world. And that's where Chardon comes in a lot and says, hey, you are wrapped around the axle around this. Do you really want to be? Because it's not helpful for you. And that right there, that last little part, that's the key part for us to focus on. Because if what we're doing is helpful for us, then we should figure out how to keep doing it. If it spirals us up, if we feel lighter, happier, more joy, playful, curious, all of those good emotions that we'd like to have, if we feel more of that when we get finished with something, then those are things we want to retain in our life. But when I get wrapped around the axle, I come out of it not feeling very light, not very happy. I can feel very down in the dumps, very grumpy, very prickly. And so it's not helpful for me at all. So for me, that part about the world is often calibrated to this frequency that is helping to drive in fear or separation or anger or hate or anxiety or anything else. Those are the things that I am getting better at learning to recognize, like, oh, that's actually a fear-based narrative. Like, why are they trying to sell me something or get me to do something or to think about something using fear-based language? And when I was in things very deeply, I wouldn't notice that it was fear-based language. I would just simply go along with it or get frustrated by it. But when I step away from things, when I go for a walk, when I get out into nature or do something different, when I re-engage, I realize, whew, Like that that language is really manipulative. It's really designed to get in and poke some things. And so, you know, I can be at that frequency that feels very fear-based and manipulative, or how do I find some sort of space that is different for me, one that can really help me to grow and to be into whatever it is that I want to grow and be into. And so one of the things that I find super practical is to think about how we curate our life, how we curate our life for the resonance that we want. And that resonance part takes me back to something that Chardin described in an interview by Monica Foley, which was around understanding the energy, frequency, and vibration. And Monica had asked some questions about positive energy, negative energy, dark energy, light energy. And Chardin took some different focuses in that, talked about, energy is all around us. It's in the air that we breathe, it's in the water that we drink or the food that we eat. It's in the interactions that we have with others, it's in the light that we can see. So energy is all around us, and energy per se isn't good or bad. It is just energy that is all there. And low vibrational energy, which we oftentimes will think of as negative energy or dark energy, is really just, it's a dense energy. A low frequency energy is just a dense energy. And dense energy can be really not helpful in certain places or circumstances. If I'm interacting with a person and what I am connecting with or engaging with is a very dense energy with that person, that's probably not going to be really helpful for me. They might be in just a dark space, or they just want to be very angry or frustrated about something. If they don't want to come out of the dense energy, interacting with that isn't going to help either of us. I can't go down and spend time in the depths and help pull them up. I have to be higher, a lighter energy to be able to help someone out of that denser space. But dense doesn't necessarily mean bad. If we think about a dense energy, one of the very dense energies in our world are things like the mountains, things like the big boulders. They're very dense. That is their nature. And their nature in that denseness is also to be very grounding, very centering, and to connect us to the earth. And so, I mean, if our mountains were light and airy, or if our rocks were light and airy, they wouldn't ground us, they wouldn't pull us into our own foundation in the same way. So dense isn't necessarily bad. And lightness, a higher vibrational frequency or a lightness, isn't always good. So one of the things I'm oftentimes reminded of is ghosts are a higher vibrational frequency than we are, because they are not held down or pulled down by a physical body. And ghosts might be interesting to interact with at times, but having one in your common space can be something that can be an interference or a challenge. And so when we think about energy, instead of thinking, oh, I'm looking for light or heavy, dense, positive, can we shift it? And Chardin said, can you shift it and begin to think about what is the resonance of the energy that you're looking for? What energy resonates with you? Because whatever energy resonates with us helps us to contribute to the harmonic of the group or place that we're in, the harmonic of our world in general, and the harmonic of the universe. And the harmonic is just simply a harmony, it's a symphony. And if you think about a symphony and resonance, or a group of musicians in any sense or way, you can be beautifully playing whatever piece or instrument that you are with. But if it doesn't fit in with the rest of the group, there will be a dissonance in the sound that comes out. In the same way, if you're interacting directly with an energy and you feel it just isn't in the same resonance with you, you can't create harmony with this energy, then for whatever reason, whether it's the other person, the place, the relationship, the situation, or it's you, because we are part of that harmony. So sometimes it's us, sometimes it's the other place or space, but whichever situation, without any judgment, what we can say is that this isn't harmonizing, it's not resonating. It's not resonating with our energy, and it's not resonating with what we are hoping to create and what is possible. So that kind of brings me to part of the part where Chardin said, what you inhabit, the resonance or the frequency that you inhabit is what you create from. And what we create from allows us to consider what is possible. And again, some great quotes and information came out of another interview by Chardin, or of Chardin, by Catherine Daniels, who really focused on what is possible. And in the what is possible theme, one of the things that emerged was that what is possible is really part of the mystery of the universe. Because what is possible isn't limited to just what is already created around us or created in our universe. What is possible is more than those. But to create what isn't here yet, we have to be in a frequency and in a dimension that is different. To bring in something new, we can't just be stuck in the old. If we're looking for a solution to a problem, the solution is not in the problem. We've probably looked at that problem a bazillion different ways. The solution is not in the problem. The solution is somewhere outside of the problem. And so instead of focusing into some of those things, into the old or into the problem, how do we shift our frequency to begin to think about what is possible? Because thinking about what is possible is what allows us to create our life in a different way. Chardin likes to talk a lot about probabilities and possibilities. If you ask them if something is going to happen, they will never give you a direct answer. They always talk about possibilities and probabilities. And they will say things like, well, there's many probabilities, many possibilities, and they're not the same thing. Possibilities are the vast array of everything that could happen around you or to your life. A common example, easy to use, is a possibility is that tomorrow I could get on a plane, fly to another country, change my name, set up a new life, and never come back. That is a possibility that is open to many of us at different times. We'll sometimes know that because we're daydream a little bit, like what would happen if I just disappeared, moved entirely, and you never saw me again? A possibility. For most of us, that is not a probability. Certainly not in that way. And even if we were going to make dramatic changes like that, most of us would do it in a more orderly fashion. But there's still that possibility. That's a possibility. A probability is I'll likely get up tomorrow and do the same things that I typically am starting to do on Tuesdays. So for me, tomorrow I may go to the gym because I went to the gym last Tuesday and I went to the gym the Tuesday before. So I may continue to go to the gym tomorrow morning. There's a high probability of that. because I've sort of set a pattern in that. So whatever you will consistently do oftentimes shows up as your probabilities. What you have built into shows up as our probabilities. But if we begin to think instead from our possibilities, if we can think about, I have this sort of desire to completely change my life. Well, what are the things that I would like to include in that life? What are the possibilities? And maybe at the end of the day, you're thinking, moving to another country and changing my name and starting over is really not for me right now. I've got too many people that I care about. There's things that I really am connected to, but I need a break. Maybe I need to go visit another country and come back. Or maybe I need to change something else in my life. Maybe what I'm missing is not something that's an adventure. Maybe it's something that it's connected to my roots or my heritage, and that's why I'm focused on that country. So how do I build more of that into my life? Because I'm clearly needing to strengthen my roots, my foundational roots in my ancestry. Just explore it. But as we begin to explore what is possible, that's where we begin to shift and change the resonance around us, the frequency around us, and then we begin to create our lives in different ways. So that's all I got for today. I hope you might consider joining us for the next Chardon Connection. It will be on February 9th, and that's the live stream. And you don't need to make the live stream. Lots of folks just show up for the replays. But it is on activating your past life gifts. And I kind of find that topic really interesting. When I think about activating our past life gifts, a lot of times we think about past life challenges, our past life woundings. But when we begin to think about our past life gifts, we also have access to those. So if you get a chance and that sounds interesting to you, you can sign up at the Reiki Center, and I'll put the information in the links below. Take good care, everyone.